On June 28 of 2025, a crackdown on Japanese host clubs began. The Japanese Diet passed legislation in May that, for the first time, will apply real pressure to the host club industry. The new laws took effect on June 28. In recent years, the public outcry and awareness of host clubs has been steadily rising, leading to the new legislation. The Shinjuku Police Department began to enforce the laws just a month after their passage, showing law enforcement may finally be serious about addressing this issue. This argument is based on my experience working at a host club in order to find out how they worked. You can see my other video to learn more about that. There are two main reasons host clubs need to die. First, the widespread practice of hosts intentionally developing relationships with women, only to turn them into customers after the women have already fallen for the host. This is a widespread practice and responsible for almost all the sales that I personally saw with my own eyes. Women that walk into host clubs, rather than being invited by the host, are very unlikely to spend the vast sums of money, which are tens of thousands of dollars a month after month, that make up almost all of a host club's revenue. This makes some intuitive sense if you think about it. Girls that walk in know what a host club is about, and they know that the hosts are flattering them only in an attempt to get them to spend more money. The prototypical host club customer that brings in most of the sales is a girl that works full-time hours at a brothel and then immediately spends at least 90% of that money at the host club, reliably bringing in over $10,000 per month to the host club, about half of which will go to the host. In a large percentage of cases, girls were actually spending far more than 100% of their already massive income by taking out large loans from the host club, loans which often added up to multiple years of the average full-time salary. Think of this prototypical customer. You may see why these big spenders are unlikely to be walk-in. Walk-in customers know that they are customers and are unlikely to develop the deep emotional attachment that would lead you to sell your body to old men you despise month after month, only to give the money to a different man. Girls who are just meeting a guy on a dating app have none of those protective barriers. In fact, they're on dating apps, of course, to look to fall in love, and hosts specifically target this kind of naive, modest, and serious girl looking for a boyfriend or future husband. By the time the girl finds out that the guy they've been seeing is a host, it's too late. They've already fallen for the host. The host has made sure of that before revealing that he is a host, usually using some lie such as that you don't have to come to the club because I really like you, I'm just telling you about it because this is how I make my living. Hosts also know not to waste their time basically pursuing girls who look like they're more sophisticated about this kind of thing. The owner of the host club group that I briefly worked at said something interesting about the host club billboards all over Kabukicho, which is the biggest district for host clubs and is located in Tokyo. He said the billboards actually bring in no money, and he actually got rid of them at his clubs for a long time because they are very expensive and bring in zero money. I thought that was interesting because I thought that maybe they would bring in a little bit of money through the occasional walk-in customer, but since I never saw a walk-in customer spend significant sums of money, what he said makes sense to me. He said when he got rid of the billboards for his club, the hosts would complain and their morale dropped as a result, and so he was forced to bring back advertisements, such as billboards and truck ads. He said ads are purely a type of reward for successful hosts who wanted the recognition of seeing themselves on billboards. The second major reason host clubs need to die is that the bulk of the potentially billions of dollars that host clubs bring in is earned by sex work. The fact that customers are often pressured into sex work or tricked into falling for someone who they didn't know was a host makes it that much worse. Sex work is illegal in much of the world for a reason. The lifelong emotional impact and the potential social consequences are immense. Even after you quit working as a prostitute, women now have a secret to keep to themselves for the rest of their lives, usually including from family and friends, and often husbands and children, if they are able to recover enough to form relationships with men again. For women that go into sex work full-time, as they are pressured to do by hosts and the incentive of a host club, there are deep financial and career consequences. Sex workers' earning potential peaks at 18 and only goes down from there, and the severe physical and psychological toll also contributes to the short average lifespan of sex workers. So within a year or two, most of these girls that are drawn into prostitution in order to support their host now have no income. They've lost their day job and they have an unexplainable blank spot on their resume, which is very consequential for a woman in Japan. There's a reason there's only one other major country that allows prostitution, Germany. I don't have a stance on whether prostitution should be legal or not, But I think this is a deeply evil system where both host clubs and legal prostitution exists. Host clubs are a major part of the prostitution industry. Everyone knows this in Kabukicho, and it's something hosts even openly talk about. It's that obvious. If host clubs were illegal, hosts would just be known as romance scammers and pimps. They would continue to exist, but only at a tiny fraction of the size of the host club industry. If prostitution is going to be legal, Japan should really ensure that the money earned through the extreme pain and hard work of the girls actually goes to the women rather than to a malicious stranger. If legal prostitution did not exist in Japan, host clubs would not exist as they are today. The host club industry is unique to Japan, and the existence of widespread legal prostitution is one reason why host clubs could not happen anywhere else. For some reason, the fact that host club revenue is mostly from prostitution isn't talked about much, even in Japan. Obviously, hosts rarely talk about it, but even if it weren't explained so explicitly, it's actually apparent if you know about some of the basic facts. Facts such as that most customers are in their 20s, and some hosts are bringing in millions of dollars individually, paid for by just a few girls, and drinks like champagne towers can cost tens of thousands of dollars. Now the truth should be very obvious. There's only one possible type of work that these girls could be doing to earn so much money. Japan is slowly becoming more aware about the reality of host clubs, and people are speaking up. There are 1,100 host clubs nationwide, and in 2024, there were officially 2,776 complaints about malicious host clubs, up 700 cases from 2021. They include cases such as hosts pushing girls to go into prostitution. 33% of host clubs are in Tokyo, followed by 18% in Osaka. Last year, police were involved in 81 cases of girls being pushed into prostitution, with 207 perpetrators involved. 40% of those involved were hosts, and 30% were affiliated with host clubs, including people like managers. 11% were people affiliated with brothels, 6% were street touts, and 5% were sex business scouts. Last year in April, during a meeting held by the Shinjuku mayor, host clubs had agreed to stop using the loan system, in which the customers could take out loans to pay for expensive drinks. However, a year later, officials from the Metropolitan Police Department say that there was no basic change to the system in which customers were pressured into paying large amounts of money. Some clubs even started a system where customers would pay large amounts of money in advance rather than afterwards. Luckily, as mentioned, there is an ongoing crackdown on host clubs. Legislation passed in May of 2025 began to be enforced on June 28. So what does the new legislation say? The new legislation has a lot of details, but broadly it targets the use of intimidation, lying, and, most uniquely, the use of romantic statements when trying to get money from customers. Here are some specific rules that police are communicating to host clubs as being specifically outlawed. Falsely representing or explaining prices. Serving drinks that the customers didn't order and then making them pay for it. These violations can get a host club's business license canceled. Using romantic feelings in order to get customers to spend money. Real example quote. If you don't come over, we're over. Intimidating customers in order to extract payment. I will go to your family home if you don't pay. Pressuring customers into prostitution or pornography. If you don't do prostitution on the street or in a brothel, I don't think I can marry you. You don't have to have penetrative sex, you can just let them touch you. Receiving money from sex business scouts for introducing girls to them. These violations can result in criminal penalties. Operating without a license can result in imprisonment of up to 5 years, which was formerly up to 2 years, and a fine of up to 10 million yen, up from 2 million yen. And the maximum fine for businesses goes from up to 2 million yen to up to 300 million yen. Pressuring girls into spending money by using competition is banned. This means that ads can't talk about sales rankings or leadership positions, which are largely assigned based on sales records. What impact will the new laws have? Personally, I think the laws banning the use of romantic feelings to pressure customers won't have a huge effect on their own. The examples they use, such as hosts saying, "If you don't come to the club, we're over," is already something that a talented host wouldn't say anyway. A successful host gets the customer to want to pay money. They're not using outright intimidation to get them to pay. I think the most important part of the new laws is the ban on using competition to pressure customers into paying money. Competition was a central part of how host clubs operated. For example, every night from the moment the club opened until closing, the competition to get the most sales that day is in the back or center of everyone's minds, both the hosts and the customers. Host clubs stop taking orders at midnight, and at that point, all of the sales for each host are calculated, and the number one host for that night is announced. The winning host at the end of the night gets to sing a last song of their choice, like in a karaoke, while sitting next to the customers that supported them and remained past midnight with them. For hours leading up to midnight, there is intense speculation and conversation about who is popping off that night. A newer member might have gotten a particularly large order early in the night, causing everyone to talk excitedly about whether he might win the last song for the first time. Depending on the club, many of both the hosts and customers can be rooting for the new guy, the underdog who has been tirelessly working day and night for this moment. The hosts and customers strategize about on which day to spend a lot of money in order to win the last song. It's actually an emotional moment for everyone when the last song is sung and played. Sometimes the host and often the customer is crying as the host sings the last song on the mic. It was very moving to see the host and customer cry together as the last song plays. A common occurrence is that towards the end of the night, two highly ranked hosts will be far ahead of everyone else in the competition. At this point, some other hosts will decide to ask the girls not to spend heavily that night so that they can try to win on a different night. The speculation in the club ramps up as the two hosts bring in massive order after massive order. Throughout the night, they can check their sales number, but each host may be saving a particularly large order for the very last order, or they may not. This is the game theory of host clubs. When the last orders are filled, it's usually clear who has a chance of winning, but it's usually unclear who has actually won, because the size of the last order is unknown until they are added up. The monthly sales ranking is just as central to the competition created by host clubs. The monthly sales ranks would be on posters throughout Kabukicho and especially inside of each host club, with massive posters for individual highly ranking hosts. For the entire following month, a high-ranking host's identity is tied to his ranking, and hosts who are unranked are defined by their lack of a ranking. The ranking is like a title, it's constantly associated with the host's name. After the end of each month, there is a sort of ceremony within each club where all of the hosts are handed their pay in cash. All of the top rank hosts are called up, starting from the lowest rank, and have their payment handed to them in front of everyone by the president of the club. In short, the new law banning the use of competition for advertisement will definitely have a tangible impact on the culture of host clubs. Host clubs will come up with new ways to entice customers into paying large amounts of money, and the question is how effective these new methods will be. I think there will be a noticeable but not devastating impact to the bottom line of host clubs. We can look at an example from a past crackdown. Kabukicho, located in Shinjuku, is the biggest hub for host clubs, with about 300 of the 1,000 total host clubs. And as mentioned, Kabukicho stopped using the loan system last year, when loans felt like a critical tool of host clubs. From the interviews I've seen, this change appeared to have a marginal, but of course not a devastating impact on host clubs in the district. While host clubs will experience some serious obstacles for the first time, they will definitely survive, and I would guess that they will continue to do well. If people in Japan were aware of how host clubs actually make money, I think the crackdown on host clubs would be even more severe. Someone like Roland continues to be a big, mainstream celebrity in Japan, with appearances on major TV networks and TV dramas, commercials for major corporations such as Suntory, and an expanding portfolio of legitimate businesses. I wish people would take a minute to think about where his millions of dollars in sales came from. The charisma of hosts like Roland is one challenge to regulating host clubs into something that isn't just a glorified legal pimping organization. Hosts spend almost all of their waking hours on becoming the kind of person, outwardly, that a girl would give money to. In the case of Roland, he practiced this for 10 years, and he had all the resources possible to help him in this, especially cosmetic resources. If you met a successful host, you would probably like him a lot. You've never met someone who has spent as much time on trying to be likable professionally as a host. Hosts already have a major social media presence in Japan, and if they go on the defensive about their industry, this could be another challenge to effective regulation of host clubs.